Hello, hello, good afternoon. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is this Thursday 3:30 p.m. demo at the Alaskan Adventure Online Crop. And oh, look at that. My video's even lined up pretty close. Pretty close. I'm happy with that. We're going to be looking today at an interesting product from Stampin' Up! And it is called Oxidized Copper. Let me just find it here in the catalog. And it may be something that you may have seen as you flip through the catalog or were looking online. But it doesn't really jump out because there's a couple things featured here on this page, a few things featured. And so if you go up to here, it says Captivating Copper. This is on page 111. There's Naturally Gilded Designer Series paper, which we have taken a look at before. But then there's also Oxidized Copper Specialty Designer Series paper here as well. And I want to show you what that looks like up close because it's really kind of fantastic. So in your package, you're going to get 2 sheets of 2 different designs. So here is the first one. And if you've ever seen copper as it's aged, it gets this lovely green patina on here. This is pretty peacock that you can see here, along with a little bit of pecan pie in the background, along with that gorgeous copper foiling. And then you also get 2 sheets of this one that's sort of, this is kind of the stage before the patina with the green comes on. One of the iconic things in Canada that has copper is the Parliament buildings in Ottawa. And about 10 years ago, some of it received new copper roofing. And so a lot of the copper roofing was this gorgeous green color. And then we had the new copper color. And in between going from perfectly shiny copper to the green patina is sort of this brownish stage. So these are the 2 stages of oxidizing copper, which I think is super fun. And so I just wanted to kind of show you that and show you where they got those 2 different colors from. And so this is the oxidized copper that we're going to be using. We're also going, before I put my catalog away, we're also going to be using the Friends for Life stamp set for our sentiment on this. We're going to create a card with the oxidized copper designer specialty paper. And we're also going to use the Flowers of Beauty stamp set that coordinates with the Unbounded Beauty collection. Just because it coordinates with something doesn't mean that's the only thing you can use it with. So, well, those are the stamp sets that we're going to be looking at, as well as that beautiful oxidized copper. And so let's bring in a piece of that. So here we have the particular pattern that has that gorgeous green patina on it, which is the typical one that you think of when you think of oxidized copper. The great thing about copper roofing is that it withstands the elements. Like a copper roof can last you 100 years. Once it goes through this oxidization phase, it doesn't actually like rust per se. It doesn't like wear through like other metal roofs. And so anyway, we're going to start with this. Hey, Diane, nice to see you're watching. You made it. You found us. Hooray. And it's working for you. Hey, Mom, nice to see you're watching. And Mary found us as well. Hooray, hooray. So if you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. In order to comment on a YouTube live, you need to sign into YouTube with your Gmail. And that way you'll be able to comment live. But if you can't comment live, you can always comment afterwards on the event page. So this piece has been cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I know that's a little weird size, but that's the size I wanted to go for. And so I'm going to kind of put it here in the center of my mat so that the shine is kind of around it. You won't have to be glared at for the entire length of this video because that would be uncomfortable. All right, so because this sort of greenish color is the pretty peacock, I have gone ahead and I have cut 3 strips because we're not just going to leave this plain, are we? We're going to dress it up. We're going to embellish it. We're going to do all the fun, pretty things that we like to do. So I have cut 3 strips of 1/4 inch by 12-inch pieces of pretty peacock cardstock. So these are just 1/4 inch strips. And we're going to do a little bit of paper weaving on here to create a nice pattern. So the first thing that I want to do is just at the end of each of these strips. Now hopefully this will work because I have 1/4 inch adhesive on a 1/4 inch strip. So we're going to have to try and line it up as best we can. I'm just going to add about 1 inch of adhesive. That's all, just a little touch of adhesive at the end, and it doesn't even need to go right to the very tippy end. You'll see why in a minute. But we just want to have a little bit of adhesive on there to hold everything in place while we do some weaving. Have you done paper weaving before? I remember, back in the day in public school, we would do lots of paper weaving. We'd make like Mother's Day placemats and Father's Day placemats and all sorts of things, or Easter, and we would use construction paper. So this is kind of, the grown-up version of that. So we've got our little bit of adhesive here. What I want to do is I want to put this point right at the bottom here. You can have it overlap a little bit. And then I want my strip to kind of come up the left side on an angle. So I'm coming up, I'm at a 1/2 inch mark here. So let me stick it down here. And then I'll tell you approximately how high up we go. 1, 2, about 3 inches up from the bottom. Okay, so I'm just using my mat to help me line that up. And then the next strip is going to go above that and run parallel to it. And we're going to leave a little gap in between, just like that. Nice little gap. Stick it down. We're just eyeballing the gap. Okay. Again, we're just keeping the end of it right there at the edge of the paper. We're going to trim it at the end, so we don't need to worry. If there's a little bit hanging over, it's all good. It's going to hang over anyway because it's a square end. And we're going to have to cut it on an angle. So there, we've got our 3 strips. And you can see we're not all the way to the top. We've got a nice little gap there of about 1 inch and a bit. So we've got those lined up. What I want to do is I want to trim these off now a little bit. So I've got my little scissors here. And I'm not trimming them off exactly, okay? I'm going to get approximately trimmed off. Because we're going to do some weaving, our distance may change as we go along. Alrighty, so let's stick that back down there. Hopefully we're not glaring too much in anybody's eyeballs. Ta-da. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to do the same thing. We're going to turn these over. You can still see I'm down at, let's move up a little bit. I'm down at the bottom of the screen now. So we're going to turn these over to the opposite side, to the back side, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a little bit of adhesive just on the end where we already cut the little angle. We're going to add a little bit of adhesive there. 1, 2, and 3. Trying to stay on the paper. And this is where we're going to start our weaving. Let's take the backing off one of our pieces, turn it over, and we've already got a cut angle. So our cut angle is going to line up with the bottom of our piece of paper here. And we want to start weaving. So if you've ever done any kind of weaving or looked at any kind of weaving, you know that you do things over, under, over, under, over, under. So I'm going to lift up my middle strip here, and I'm just going to slide this strip under and slide, slide, slide until I'm happy with where it's sitting on my paper. I'm going to scooch it a little bit over. And this little cut angle is actually going to help me, because if I line up that cut angle pretty close, I will end up with sort of a 90-degree. I'm kind of cheating it a little bit. A little bit of a 90-degree there. And then we're going to take the next one. See how super simple this is? We've just attached one end, and now we're doing weaving. So now this one, because this first one we lifted up the center one, now we're going to have to lift up the two outside ones. So we're going to lift up the top one and then the bottom one. So we've gone under, over the middle one, and under the last one with this strip. And we're just going to wiggle it our way down until we line up, leaving about the same gap as we had before, and stick that one down. And then the last piece is going to be just like the first piece. We're going to just lift up that center strip. Just lift it up. And this is why we only have adhesive just at the one end, so that we can do the weaving. And wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Kind of seesaw our way through. And lay that one down. And if you've trimmed this off close enough, and you've laid this one down like that, you should have all of your ends coming off the end, so that you're not short. We don't want to be too short. Then we're going to come in with some liquid glue. This is where we need to use our liquid glue. And we're just simply going to lift up each of these strips and add some liquid glue along the path in which they will run when they lay down. And you can use the ones on either side as a guide to get your glue in the right spot. And we'll stick it down. I've got to say, of all the different things that I've ever done weaving on, and I've actually woven baskets, this is definitely the easiest. Okay, so let's come in. We'll stick down the middle one first. That's the easiest because you just run the bead right down the center of those other two strips. And then our outside ones, you want to make sure you're still kind of running in parallel lines, kind of like railroad tracks, how they run right along beside each other, nice and even, and stick them down. Easy peasy. And now we're going to come in. We need to do some trimming. If we turn our paper over, that's the best way to trim. And you can see we have some edges over here that need to be trimmed off. So we're going to just very gently snip, 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 because we've got liquid glue going on here. We don't want to be too rough. And then we'll come to the other side. We're going to trim these little strips off like that. My tip for you is when you're cutting 1/4 inch strips like this, is that you start out with a large sheet of paper and you cut your 1/4 inch strips off of the large piece of paper. Don't wait until you're down to the last inch to try and cut 1/4 inch strips like me. If you have a big piece, then it's a lot easier to move it over in small increments and trim off those little strips. When you're down to the last bit, it's much harder to get them through your trimmer. So that's my advice. And then we're going to take this, we're going to attach it to our card base, and I've got just a standard white card base. We're going to fold it with the bump side of the crease to the inside. Crease it down. And then we're going to attach this to the front of our card. And I'm not going to use any dimensionals for this. I'm just going to simply glue it down. I could even use liquid glue if I wanted. Oops, I'm getting really close to the edge on that strip. Hopefully I didn't go right over the edge. There we go. Let me grab a tool to help me. Using the take your pick tool just to help me lift those up. I haven't done my nails for a while, and I always forget that when your nails are painted, it's a little bit harder to lift little things up. They don't always have the grab that your plain nails do. There we go. Okay. So now we've got those. Oh, look at that. It's kind of got some matchy-matchy happening there. All right. So now we have that nice little border of white, and that's going to come into play because we're going to do some stamping. And did I actually get out some scrap paper for stamping? I did not. So let me grab a piece of scrap paper out of my drawer here. It's a big piece of scrap paper from my drawer. And we're going to do some stamping on this. Let me just turn it this way. And the stamp that I'm going to use is the Flowers of Beauty stamp set. And we're going to use this larger flower, this smaller flower, and the leaves. We've used these a few times, so they're really fun ones to use when you want to create an arrangement. So I'm just going to set that there. And for this, we need to do some pardon me. We need to do some stamping off, or second generation stamping. So I've got my sticky notes here just because they're handy for doing little things. And I've got wild wheat here, which is not a color that I've actually used all that much yet. So I've got the outline of my leaves first. I'm going to ink those up. And let me just scooch this over. I'm going to stamp. Let me see. I'll just do one of them. Stamp one. And then I want to come in with the part that fills in the color of my leaf. Sorry, I'm trying to get it so it's not way off in the distance here. And for this, I don't want the same strength. So I'm going to ink it up and stamp it off here so that some of the ink has gone away. But I can do this second generation stamp, just like we did earlier today. And that creates a lighter tone of the same color. And so you can easily color in any stamped image just by doing that. Okay, so we've got a leaf going. Now I want to bring in another color. We're going to bring in the copper clay. And I'm going to stamp one of these large flowers. So we've got, and you're going to see me do a little switcheroo here, because I haven't cleaned that yet. I'm just going to set it aside. Pick this up with this block. And I'm going to take my outline of my leaf, stick it there. It's always handy to stick it right in the case, even if you're not washed it and not sticking it back on the carrier sheet, because then you know where it is. You're not looking for it. We're going to leave this open and just scooch it aside here. So for this one, we're going to first stamp our, you know what? Let's try the outline first. I've not actually done that with this stamp before. Let's do like we did with the leaf. We'll stamp our outline first, just like that, full strength. And then I'm going to come in with the one that fills in, ink it up, stamp it off. Maybe I'll even stamp it off twice. We're going to do third generation stamping, and we'll take a look and see how it turns out if we like it. Oh yes, I do. I like that. So that is third generation stamping. So we did first, second, and third. Very nice. So we get a nice light tone to that flower. And then let's go ahead. We'll close that up because we need to bring one more color in. I've got the pretty Peacock, which, as we know, is the same color that's in that oxidized copper paper. And let's do the smallest. I'm going to get ink all over my fingers doing it this way. We're going to bring in the smallest flower. Stick that on. Again, we're just setting these aside. I will wash them after. Promise. There we go. Set that aside. Okay, so let's do the same thing. I think I kind of like that. We're going to ink up the outline and stamp it down. I usually go the other way around. This is a new test for me. So again, with that pretty peacock, we're going to ink it up, we're going to stamp it off, and then I have to figure out which direction we're going. There we go. And I'm not right above where I'm stamping, so we'll see how, oh, look at that. So I have just decided I like doing the outline first. I think it just works out better. I seem to line it up better. So there's a tip for me today. Don't know if it's a tip for you, but I usually stamp the color first, the all over color, and then the outline. But from now on, I think I'm going to do it the other way around. Now that we've got these stamped out, we can go ahead and do some, you guessed it, fussy cutting. And there we go. So when I do fussy cutting, I like to pick a spot to start that's kind of an easy spot with nice solid lines. And then when we get to the ones that are a little less solid, like this petal, which is missing it, you can just kind of have your flow going and you just sort of swoop over the top, pretend like there is something there, and that works just perfectly. And we're leaving a little halo of the white cardstock around the edge of our flower, just as it would be if it was die cut. There are die cuts available for this stamp set, and they were just recently on sale because all the bundles were on sale. But the sale is over. However, currently there is a deal going on. I believe if you spend in Canada, if you spend $60, you get a $6 coupon to use in August. So that deal is going on right now. Just started yesterday. All right, so now we're going to just trim around our beautiful copper clay floral. I don't even know what kind of flowers these would be technically. Maybe some of you might have some suggestions as to what kind of flowers they are. I'm not, as we were discussing today during Chat and Craft, I'm not so good with flowers. They last a while and then they die. So I'm definitely not good at naming flowers if I can't even keep them alive. All right, there we go. And then, of course, we have our lovely little duo of leaves here. And we'll just trim around those as well. Now, sometimes when I cut these out, I cut that center portion. For this particular project, we're not going to see that, so I'm not going to take the time to trim that out, but it's easily done with a little precision blade, or, as I said, the dies, I believe, cut out that center bit. So you would be in luck if you had the die set as well as the stamp set. All right, there is our little leaves. And then let's bring back in our card that we're working on. And just to save some time, I went ahead and I stamped and fussy cut a few more items. We're going to use some dimensionals to help us put this together. And I'm looking around trying to figure out where I put them. There we go. I have new glasses. I have those lovely things that they call bifocals. And so I'm slowly getting used to where I need to tip my head up and down to find what I'm looking for. So I'm going to take a Stampin' Dimensional and just attach one right in the center of this big flower. You might wonder why I'm only putting one in the center, but that's because I'm going to be doing some tucking. And so since we're going to be doing some tucking, we need to leave some space. So let's add our largest flower right in the crook of this V that's created there. Then we can actually use some liquid glue for our leaves. Just going to put a little bit on the stem and tuck that under here like that. Then let's bring in another group We're just going to tuck them under now. If I find that the stems interfere with the foam that's under there, I can always just trim off some of the stem of my leaf. You know what? Let's come in with a third set of leaves. This one's going to come over here like so. We're kind of keeping our grouping in such a way that we can still see some of the weaving that we spent time doing. If we weren't going to see it at all, then what would be the point? We might as well have just put strips down, which you can totally do. You can totally do that. All right, let's add a mini Stampin' Dimensional onto this one. And let's just kind of tuck it under the edge of the large flower. Like that. And then, do I have another one? I do have another one. Pardon me. We're going to add one in the center of this flower. And then let's just pop this one on top. Just like that. We've created a nice little cluster. Now we need our sentiment. And so for our sentiment, because the floral, what's it called again? Flowers of Beauty stamp set doesn't have any sentiments, we're going to call upon our Friends for Life stamp set. And there's some lovely sentiments in here. So excited for you. Thank you for being love you, miss you, best friend, wishes, hi, happy birthday, thinking of you, lots of fun stuff. And then there's even some extra little icon stamps in there. So we're going to use that. I've cut out just a little strip of white cardstock. This is a 1/2 inch by 2 1/4. And I'm going to use the thank you sentiment. And if you've been watching some of my other videos, you know that I actually cut this stamp. So I wanted to be able to stamp this on 2 lines. So I have the word thank and I have the word you. And you will notice that when I cut them, I cut it in a chevron pattern. Can you see that there? Where I cut in a chevron? So that when I want to stamp them as one continuous word, all I have to do is butt those 2 chevrons together, and then I know my stamp is lined up. So if I line this up on my mat, the thank and the you, and I push them together with my little chevron and pick them up, then I know I'm all in alignment. So if you want to do stamp surgery and cut apart your stamps, then you can totally do that, but that's a nice little helpful tip for being able to put them back together again. I'm bringing in the copper clay again, and I'm going to just ink up my sentiment gently. Easy does it. And we're going to stamp that in the center of our little piece of cardstock there. And we can go ahead and attach this. And I think I'm going to use a couple dimensionals on this. Let me see. I think these will fit. Yes, they will. Just add a couple of those. Come away. Come away. Are you loving this oxidized copper? Doesn't that just have the loveliest glow to it? We're going to add our sentiment on there. And then, of course, even though we've got a lot of glow going on with the foil, we're going to add some of these Rhinestone Basic Jewels just for a little extra something something. I'm going to use my take your pick tool, and I'm going to add these to the center of these little flowers because I think that's a perfect spot for them. Just tuck them in there for a little bit of shine. And then, because we like to do things in 3s, I'm just going to tuck another one just right there in the little nook. And that is our card completed using that beautiful oxidized copper, lovely patina designer series paper in there. Something that you may not have seen when you flip through the catalog, because it's kind of a hidden jewel in there. And I just think it's really beautiful. It's got lovely texture to it. Then we layered up the strips of the pretty peacock on there. We added stamped images using first, second, and third generation stamping to create those. Some of them are popped up with dimensionals. And then, of course, stamping our sentiment and adding some bling for a lovely thank you card. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that come together and seeing this beautiful product, the oxidized copper that comes in the two different stages of copper oxidization. So have a wonderful rest of the afternoon, and we will be back on at 7 o'clock for Chat and Craft on Zoom, and I will post the link just a couple minutes ahead of 7 o'clock, so you'll be able to join us anytime between 7 and 11 this evening. Have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you again soon. Toodaloo. Bye.